I'm on a very secret, but very exciting mission. I have a friend who's gonna propose, so we're gonna go take some fun proposal photos. Now the issue is that his girlfriend knows who I am. So I'm gonna be having the mask on, trying to stay in a crowd. It means I can't really bring you along too much. I'm gonna try and have you secretly there, show you what I'm doing, but I'm really excited. And I'm really excited to share with you kind of like what these photos turned out to be, how to stay a little sneaky. So hopefully I'll show you getting the photos, and we'll talk about some tips and tricks on how to do this afterwards. All right, let's go. That was fun. We made some pretty amazing photos, and I'm super excited for my friends to get engaged. It's obviously a big moment in anyone's life, and I'm glad that I was able to be a part of that. Thank you, Kirk, for asking me to make those photos. Now that we're back, I wanted to talk a little bit about some tips and tricks on kind of how to make sure that you're able to capture those photos, because there's a lot happening and it happens very quickly. First up is to have a plan. Obviously, you want to know when and where and all of the normal basic things, but make sure that you as the photographer are there early, that you have your spot picked out, that you have your lens and all of your gear and all of your things have been checked, all of your settings are right, so that when the moment happens, you're ready to go. Because when that moment happens, when you need to be making photos, it's going to come very quickly, it's going to move very quickly, and there's no time to be messing with settings. You need to rely on your gear to make those decisions for you once you've kind of set it up how you want. So for me, I put it in aperture priority. I let the shutter speed kind of be decided by the camera, and I set a minimum to that so that it's not going to drop below, just in case there was any motion either in the scene or in me, because I'm kind of jumping around making a bunch of photos. I want the shutter speed to stay above a certain minimum. I think for me, I had it at 1/25 of a second, so anything below that just wasn't going to happen. Now, this next tip is going to depend on if the person being proposed to knows who you are. In this case, she did know who I am. Now, she wasn't expecting me in this context, so I was figuring that with a coat and a beanie and a mask and being in a crowd, I was going to pretty much be able to sneak around without her noticing that I was there or recognizing me. Now, in this case, had she not known who I was, it would have been much easier just to kind of walk around and her not think anything of it, that I was a photographer and something was going to happen. But you really don't want to be the one ruining that surprise, so make sure that you are hidden away in a way that makes sense. So because she did know who I was, I started off up on the top. If you're familiar with the ice rink in Chicago, it's down on one level and the beam is up on another level. I started up top, so I had a vantage point, and just being able to check out where they were, make sure that they were on the ice rink before anything happened. I thought that was going to be where I made some photos, but this brings us to our next tip, which is to stay flexible. Because when Kirk, my friend who was actually doing the proposing, got there, he saw that the Christmas tree with all these beautiful lights was still up. All of this was after the new year. And he was able to kind of get behind her a little bit and send me a quick text and say, hey, how about the tree? And so that meant that I needed to change my position on the spot. So stay flexible. I had a plan going in, but I had to change that on the fly to make sure that I was getting the photos that my client wanted. And that means that you have to stay flexible. It's okay. You got to make sure that you trust your gear, trust yourself, and you'll make some good photos. So in this case, I was able to get down and I stayed hidden. I was hiding behind some bushes, And then also we were texting about what lap he was going to actually do it on, so I was able to get in a better position. I stayed back until it was the moment, then I snuck up and I was behind a pole so that the moment it happened, I was able to jump out and make some photos. What was great about this scenario was that everybody around knew what was happening and saw me making these photos and stayed out of my way. I think there was only one photo where I had somebody skating in front that kind of got in the way of that photo, but because they just kept moving, I kept making photos. While I was obviously focused on making the photos, had the camera up to my eye, I could hear people around me saying, "Move, move, move, he's taking photos." So it was really good that just most people are going to be aware and very courteous of what's happening. They want that moment to be special for everybody involved. So they were really kind. Now, in this case, while everybody was considerate of what I was doing and able to recognize that I was the photographer for that moment, don't be afraid to say something, to point out like, "Hey, I'm taking photos, get out of my way." Or if there's somebody that you need to ask to move even before the moment is happening, most people are going to be considerate and understand that, "Hey, something's about to happen. Can I ask you to move just a couple feet this way so that I can be ready to make the photos that I need to make?" It was obviously really exciting when she said yes. She shook her head yes. Everybody just started cheering and getting really excited for them. So be there to just capture those moments and the joy of the moment. There's a lot of emotion happening, and that's what you're there for. I'd say for me, I did my best to position myself where I could get her reaction. In our current world, obviously masks are a factor, but position yourself best to get the reaction of the emotion of that moment is going to be key. So I did two things. I got the shot just straight on with the tree in the background, and then I slid over a little bit to get more of her face. And when hopefully she did take her mask off, I was able to get some of that reaction. And I think the last tip I want to share is just be available for photos afterwards. Obviously, they are going to want some photos to post, to share with friends and family, to share in that moment and celebrate. And so that's what we did. We walked around Millennium Park, and there was some different spots that we were able to make some additional photos of just them loving each other and having fun and celebrating in the moment. And to me, this is why I love photography, is that life happens around us and we want to document those moments. And for me, I was able to be invited into a very special moment between two people and be able to just use my skills to make sure that that moment is able to be celebrated in the way that they want to. There's obviously a lot of pressure on a moment like this, and so being able to make those photos so that they can look back on and have the memory of that in visual format is just really special. I know it's really a blur of a moment. I know for me personally, I couldn't tell you one thing about what I said when I proposed, and I doubt my wife could tell you anything about that at this point, just because it is a blur of a moment of emotions. And so having photos of that moment is something that will make it even special down the road, being able to look back. Now, real quick, if you don't know, I am in the middle of a photo challenge, a 30-day photo challenge where I'm making a photo every single day. And obviously this was my photo for that day. This was a couple days ago now, but that was my photo of the day. I'm sharing a lot of those photos, not every single one of them, over on Instagram and Twitter. So make sure and follow me at I'm Aaron Ross on both of those. But also make sure and hit subscribe, because I'll be sharing a wrap-up video of all of the photos and my thoughts on this process and challenge in the beginning of February, looking back at all of the photos I made in January. But there are any other tips that you would have for somebody making photos of a proposal? Leave those down in the comments. I would love to hear those, and I'm sure others would learn as well. But until next time, I'm gonna go make something. I hope you do too.